Hello, Tony, your deck architect here, back on my channel once more with another deck profile. With Battle of Chaos already out since this Wednesday, we're going to be shortly transitioning to our deck profile coverage of that set. But before we get there, there's one last thing I have to do. As promised last week, we still have one more deck profile to explore for Grand Creators before we dive into the next set. Thus, wrapping up our coverage of Grand Creators, our last deck profile will be one of sublime imagery and futuristic expression. Ladies and gentlemen, today, we're going to be diving in to the P.U.N.K. So to try to summarize the P.U.N.K are less an archetype based on a genre more as they are an archetype based on expressionism itself. With no actual indication as to what their namesake acronym actually means, the P.U.N.K embody four major styles of Japanese art neatly packaged in a Neo-Tokyo cyberpunk theme. Combining sublime imagery with futuristic digitization, the P.U.N.K appear as a modernization of these four traditional styles, with their card artworks adding a very technological flair to what is otherwise a classical piece of Japanese culture. Consequently, the P.U.N.K itself are less a singular defined archetype, more as they are a collection of distinct strategies linked by common elements. The members of the archetype are disseminated into four sub-archetypes, each categorized by a style with their own unique mechanics of play. This chaotic separation led many to initially assume that the archetype lacked direction or consistency, but that could be no further from the truth. In reality, the P.U.N.K are very adept at playing a flexible game, being able to fluidly transition from one style into the next with relative ease. And that results in a deck that employs the same principles as an engine deck like P.K. Destiny Brave artifacts to access multiple facets of interaction without directly being reliant on a single strategy. What's more, as a predominantly psychic type archetype, the deck benefits from the return of E-Telly to 3 to guarantee full powered access to consistent plays with almost any hand available, with a deck capable of easily ending on boards of 4 to 5 disruptions off of 1.5 card combos to transition into 9,000 points of damage on the following turn. And that is what I hope to be able to showcase as I get through this deck profile. Anyway, I believe I have droned long enough. Without a further ado, let's get into the deck profile. Now, as with our Exorcister deck profile, the P.U.N.K deck profile will deviate from our standard profile structure. As already mentioned, the P.U.N.K itself is split into four sub-archetypes, each with its own unique method of play and spearheaded by a unique level 3 psychic monster. This means that you can theoretically play each sub-archetype individually as an engine or as a combined deck. Thus, I'm going to be introducing the cards of each style together first, defining what each style can do alone as well as what it can do for the archetype as a whole, before going into the rest of the deck. I think this provides a much more ordered insight into how this deck functions to help players actually understand how it all comes together. Getting into our first style, we have the No-P.U.N.K style. Now, the No style of P.U.N.K refers to No Gaku theater, a classical dance drama type of performance that utilizes masks and costumes to tell stories of supernatural beings transforming into humans. And this is almost perfectly exemplified in the monsters, starting with our 3 No-P.U.N.K Zeamin. Zeamin is a level 3 Earth Psychic Tuner monster with 600 attack and defense. While on the field, Zeamin can pay 600 life points to add any P.U.N.K monster from your deck to your hand. Furthermore, if Zeamin would be sent to the graveyard, it can target a P.U.N.K monster you control and increase its attack permanently by 600. Often, your preferred targets for Zeamin's search will be one of your level 8 P.U.N.K monsters in our 3 No-P.U.N.K Ogre Dance and 3 No-P.U.N.K Foxy Tune. Both can special summon themselves from the hand by tributing a P.U.N.K monster you control. While on the field, Ogre Dance can gain the attack of any activating monster, while Foxy 2 can regain life points equal to that of a monster it runs over by battle. More importantly, both can send themselves from the hand or field to the graveyard to access another P.U.N.K from the deck except another level 8 P.U.N.K monster, with Ogre Dance being able to search for a P.U.N.K monster from the deck and Foxy 2 being able to send a card from the hand to the graveyard to then special summon a P.U.N.K monster from the deck. As a self-contained sub-archetype, the No-P.U.N.K employ a very aggressive transformation tactic that perfectly exemplifies the No Gaku theater performance. By having your Zeamin search into one of your 2 level 8 punk monsters, you can have Zeamin assume her supernatural form by tributing Zeamin to special summon out your level 8 punk monster. In doing this, Zeamin will then provide that newly summoned punk monster with 600 more power for a minimum 2900 attack beater. Then, after going in for aggro with your new beater, you could then use that level 8 punk monster's effect to send itself to the graveyard to grab another Zeamin, effectively having her resume her humanoid form to restart the performance again in a later turn. This allows you a constant stream of cheap beaters that can easily win games in simplified board states, where big numbers and higher life matter. As part of Punk as a whole, however, the No-Punk style specializes in consistency. Each of its members have effects that let you access other punks, which makes it really easy to go into not only each other, but other styles of punk as well. While Zeamin is simply just a Stratos for the deck, Ogre Dance and Foxy Tune are a little more complex. Because both can send themselves from the field or hand, they effectively double as Rotas and E-Tellies for the punk deck in helping you grab your other punk pieces without having you commit your normal summon. Combined with the Zeamin, they then form a powerful advantage circle that will always guarantee that you can end on a Zeamin and any other punk monster of your choice on your side of the field. Given the fact that each of these 3 members can grab into each other, it means that opening either one guarantees you access to the rest. This means you will always be guaranteed a Zeamin and a Foxy Tune effect whenever you see any of these 3 cards, which functionally results in a Zeamin alongside a second punk of your choice. For example, by opening the Ogre Dance, I can search into a Zeamin, who can then search into a Foxy Tune to then special summon out any punk from the deck. By just opening the Zeamin, I can skip the Ogre Dance step to just search into the Foxy Tune to then special summon out a punk from the deck. And by opening Foxy Tune, I can special summon out a Zeamin to search into any punk monster and then normal summon it. Functionally, this allows you to go from any no-punk style into a different style of your choice with ease to begin executing that style's plays from there. And because Zeamin is a tuner, it also opens up a very fun line of play that we all know so well in Christian Hauke Fibrax, which itself can do some pretty bonkers things. Going into our next style, we have the Ukiyoe-P.U.N.K style, which represents the drawing style of the ukiyo-e art. Ukiyo-e art is commonly depicted as woodblock prints or paintings of various subjects, from beautiful maidens to landscapes to mythological scenes. Our only main deck Ukiyo-e monster is in our 3 Ukiyoe-P.U.N.K Shirakusai, another level 3 Earth Psychic Tuner monster with 1200 attack and 600 defense. On your turn, Shirakusai can pay 600 life points to fusion summon any Punk fusion monster using monsters from the hand or field. But on your opponent's turn, Shirakusai can pay 600 life to instead synchro summon a Punk synchro monster using monsters you control. Now there's only one Punk fusion and one Punk synchro that our Shirakusai can currently access, and that's in our 2 Ukiyoe-P.U.N.K Rising Carp and 2 Ukiyoe-P.U.N.K Amazing Dragon. Starting with our Rising Carp is a level 8 fusion that can be made using any 2 Punk monsters. While its fusion summon self is on the field, Rising Carp can tribute itself to summon 2 different non-level 8 Punk monsters from the hand or deck. Furthermore, if Rising Carp is used as a synchro material, it can target a Punk monster you control and enable it to attack twice this turn. This makes it a perfect candidate to make our level 11 Amazing Dragon, which can be made using a Rising Carp and any of our level 3 tuners. Amazing Dragon, on summon, can target cards your opponent controls equal to the number of different level 3 psychic monsters in your field or graveyard to bounce them back to the hand. If you choose not to use that effect, you can instead use Amazing Dragon's other effect this turn, which can target and revive any Punk monster from the graveyard. As a self-contained style, the Ukiyoe-P.U.N.K specialize in vibrant combo plays very akin to how ukiyo-e art was commonly described. The general strategy is to use a Shirakusai to summon out a Rising Carp to then make Amazing Dragon with the Rising Carp and Shirakusai. If you do this on your turn, you can grant your Amazing Dragon 2 attacks through Rising Carp to go in for big damage. But if you do this on your opponent's turn through Shirakusai's effect, you can bounce cards for disruption instead. Regardless of whose turn you utilize that, however, come your next turn, you could then use Amazing Dragon's effect to revive your Rising Carp, which can then be used alongside any other level 3 tuner to repeat the process all over again. This allows a deck a power play that is effective going first or second, that can very easily clear fields and end games consistently. In the context of the P.U.N.K deck as a whole, the Ukiyoe-P.U.N.K function practically the same. The only difference, however, is the level of ceiling provided to its plays. Recall our previously mentioned board configuration afforded to us by the No-P.U.N.K and a Zeamin and any other P.U.N.K monster. Well, that other P.U.N.K monster intended to commonly be a Shirakusai, who, alongside the present Zeamin, can then be used to make our Rising Carp without needing additional cards. And this is where Rising Carp's other effect comes in. By tributing that Carp, you can then summon out 2 other P.U.N.Ks from the deck, which then allows you to then flow into 2 other styles of P.U.N.K. This effectively allows you to transition from just the No style into 2 other styles of P.U.N.K with no actual net loss to your field presence. From there, you can then transition to using those 2 styles for whatever plays you see fit. This play gets crazier, however, if you keep the Shirakusai on the field and instead use a second P.U.N.K in hand alongside your Zeamin to make your Rising Carp. In doing this, Zeamin will be able to grant your Shirakusai with 600 more attack, which in turn allows it to more safely stick on your field to your opponent's turn to use its quick effect for disruption. And because you will be more than likely summoning more level 3 P.U.N.Ks with Carp's effect, if you can somehow use them to end on a level 8 monster once more, they will then feed into the level 3 count of your Amazing Dragon, resulting in a much more powerful field clear. Moving on to our third style, we then have the Jorjuri-P.U.N.K style, based on Ningyo-Jorjuri, a style of puppet theater commonly accompanied with chanting and string instruments. Its only main deck monster is another level 3 Earth Psychic Tuner with 900 attack and 600 defense in our 2 Jorjuri-P.U.N.K Madam Spider. Similar to Zeamin, Madam Spider can pay 600 life points to search for a P.U.N.K trap from the deck. And while on the field, if you would target an opponent's monster using a P.U.N.K card or effect, Madam Spider can also target a monster and halve its attack as well. Your 2 targets for Madam Spider's effect are our 1 Jorjuri-P.U.N.K Nashiwari Surprise and Jorjuri-P.U.N.K Dangerous Gabu. Both traps have an effect that targets a card with an additional bonus to their effects if you control a P.U.N.K monster when doing so. Nashiwari Surprise targets a set card to destroy it, but if you control a P.U.N.K you can instead target a face-up card instead. Dangerous Gabu targets an effect monster to negate its effects, but if you control a P.U.N.K monster, you can also gain life equal to that monster's attack. As a self-contained engine, the Jorjuri-P.U.N.K embody the fine control elements of puppeteering seen in Ningyo-Jorjuri. The idea of the Jorjuri-P.U.N.K is maintaining field advantage through removal and disruption. By using your Madam Spider to search into your traps, you can use those traps to their full power thanks to controlling Madam Spider. In doing this, Madam Spider itself can also reduce the attack of your opponent's monsters to improve its own survivability. Then, when it comes around to your turn once more, you could then use Madam Spider again to grab another trap to repeat the strategy once more from there. Now, when combining this with the rest of the P.U.N.K deck, the Jorjuri-P.U.N.K evolve into another cog in our combos to help us grab another disruption for the end board. Tutable through our No-P.U.N.Ks as well as our Amazing Carp, the Jorjuri-P.U.N.K allows us to supplement our board with either a pop or an imperm. And thanks to the fact that we can end on an Amazing Dragon on our opponent's turn, it also means that we can make the use of their full power effects to destroy any card or gain life as well. Speaking of Amazing Dragon, it's also interesting to note that Amazing Dragon's bounce also trigger Madam Spider's effect as well, which in turn can be useful on your turn to drop a last monster's attack down to set up damage easier. Wrapping up our P.U.N.Ks with the last style, we have the Gagaku-P.U.N.K style, derived from Gagaku, a classical form of court music performed using various different instruments. The spearhead level 3 for the Gagaku-P.U.N.K is our 1 Gagaku-P.U.N.K Wagon. Similar to Zeamin and Madam Spider, Wagon can pay 600 life to search for a P.U.N.K spell. Furthermore, if your opponent would target a P.U.N.K monster you control for a card effect or attack, Wagon can draw you 1 card. Now, your primary targets for Wagon's effect would either be the Gagaku-P.U.N.K Wild Picking or Gagaku-P.U.N.K Crash Beat, both of which grant you passive advantages while on the field and when destroyed. similar to the passive power of music. But we aren't playing any of them. See, while the passive effects granted by either can be cool, the problem is that they're passive, which in turn makes them incredibly slow to capitalize on. In most cases, both cards will be dead until your opponent actually does something to you, which itself could potentially put you in a losing position. Thus, it's simply much better to avoid playing them to avoid breaking on them. The real purpose of Wagon in this deck is to act as another name for Rising Carp and Amazing Dragon. You'll often find yourself needing a throwaway name for Rising Carp's effect that doesn't also burn out your playmakers from the deck, and that will often be your Wagon. Likewise, having an extra level 3 name in the graveyard grants your dragon another bounce, which could be crucial when clearing large fields. And because he's still a level 3 tuner, it's not like he horribly bricks either, as his level and tuner status will still allow us to make plays with any extender. Moving beyond the Punk cards into outside support, we have a 3-card package consisting of 1 Despot 001, 1 Creation Resonator, and 1 Mecha Phantom Beast Cal Griffin. One of the most shocking things that one might discover about the Punk is the fact that the deck hardly imposes any restrictions on its play. Unlike the Exorcister or Brave archetypes who lock you into only being able to utilize certain kinds of cards, the Punk operate with no limitation on what you can or cannot do in conjunction with their effects. This allows us to incorporate outside engines to supplement the deck's strategy. In this case, the Hauka Firebrax's Auroradon engine, which is adept at amassing high-level synchro fields that our Punks can synergize with. Now, you may be already familiar with the Despot 001 and Creation Resonator that are mainstays in most modern Hulk Auroradon combos, but I imagine many of you have not heard of Mecha Phantom Beast Cal Griffin. Mecha Phantom Beast Cal Griffin is a level 7 Mecha Phantom Beast with one important effect, in that it can special summon itself from the hand by tributing 2 Mecha Phantom Beast monsters. His inclusion in the deck is to serve as our target for Auroradon to special summon from the deck. Now, because he also comes with his own summoning effect, which incidentally involves tributing the same number of monsters as what Auroradon would tribute to summon him from the deck, it means that Cal Griffin is the only Mecha Phantom Beast target that you can never theoretically brick on if you draw it, as you can always tribute the same number of Mecha Phantom Beasts on field to bring him out. Cal Griffin's inclusion as our Auroradon target comes from the fact that, through the course of our combos utilizing Hulk with the Punk, we will have one more monster on the field than what usual Hulk combos would work with. This additional body makes summoning the usual target in Cult Wing less viable, as there simply won't be enough available zones with this additional body to bring back the Despot 001 needed to make the rest of the basic board. Thus, to still produce a suitable end board, we needed another viable target that we could bring out that utilized less space, but could still be used to produce a stable boss monster. And it just so happens that Cal Griffin fits that bill. As a level 7, Cal Griffin naturally synchros with our Creation Resonator to make the level 10 Baron de Fleur. And because he can special summon himself from the hand, his ability to make this play is not impeded by you drawing into him, which makes his usage in the deck much more stable compared to the other targets. Wrapping up the remaining monsters with the hand traps, we have a pretty diverse cast consisting of 3 Infinite Impermanents for effect negation, 2 Effect Veiler for further effect negation, 2 Ash Blossom for search negation, as well as the newly added 2 Ghost Ogre and Snow Rabbit for removal. Now, all these hand traps are fantastic in the context of our current format, but Ghost Ogre particularly has some unique synergies with the deck. As a level 3 psychic monster that can also send itself from the field to apply its effect, Ghost Ogre is the only one of our hand traps that we can access using our E-Telly. This lets us utilize our extra E-Tellys for disruption on our opponent's turn, by bringing out a Ghost Ogre as an extra form of interaction. More importantly, Ghost Ogre, by the same virtue of being a level 3 psychic, also counts towards our Amazing Dragon bounce, which means that by disrupting with our Ogre, we also set ourselves up for a more powerful field clear later down the line. Finally, wrapping up the main deck with the spells, we start with 2 Polymerization. So while in most cases you will be accessing your Rising Carp through your Shirakusai, it's also just as viable of a starter play to just directly fuse for him with Poly to produce a twin summon from the deck. Functionally, since Rising Carp can summon out your Zeamine directly from the deck, this achieves the same end board configuration as if you would go from Zeamine into Shirakusai to produce the same end board. From there, we then have 3 E-Telly to use to grab any of our level 3 punk monsters, particularly Zeamine. This gives us effectively 12 ways into the No-P.U.N.K package to begin our plays. Then we have 3 Pot of Prosperity to dig into any of our No-P.U.N.K starters, 3 Cross-Arc Designator to pair with our hand traps to stop hand traps, and 1 Call by the Grave for functionally the same purpose. Finally, going into the remainder of our X deck, we of course have the 1 Kriston Haka-Fibrax, Mecha Phantom Beast Aurodon, and Cupid Pitch for the Hulk lines of play. In specific regard to your Cupid Pitch, one effect that we will be utilizing from her that we have not before on this channel is her ability to search for a monster with 600 defense when used as a synchro material. This effect, while commonly utilized to search for our Creation Resonator, can also conveniently search for any of our level 3 Punk monsters as well, since they also have 600 defense. This means that, like our Cal Griffin, it is functionally impossible to brick with our Cupid Pitch play, as even if we were to open the Creation Resonator, we can always just search for a follow-up in another Punk instead. Then from there we have 2 level 6 synchros in 1 Hyper Riser Blaster and Adamantipator Risen Dragite, both of which we can make using any level 3 tuner and a Mecha Phantom Beast token. Riptide specifically is meant to be made using our Wind Creation Resonator to create graveyard disruption on our opponent's turn, where Riser on the other hand acts as a means to protect our Shirakusai from battle while also being able to float into any of our level 3 punks when it dies. Finally, we have 1 Adamantipator Risen Dragite, 1 Cyframe Lord Omega, and 1 Borreload Savage Dragon as our level 8 synchros, 1 Baron de Fleur that we can make through our Count Griffin, 1 Star Eater as an alternative level 11, and 1 BLS Soldier of Chaos that we can make using any 3 of our monsters, including one of our level 8s, for maximum benefits. Now it's at this point that we once again reach the combo component of our deck profile. And for this combo component, I have 2 things to showcase. The first is a 2-card combo that you can execute to end on 4 disruptions and a field clear OTK. And the second is our channel mandated test hand to show you what the deck can do on an average day. So with that being said, I believe the deck is shuffled, the field is ready. Let us begin. Starting things off with our set combo. This set combo can be executed whenever you have an opening hand where the following conditions are met. The first being that you have to open any other Punk monster, and the next that you have to open one of these 4 cards, either a Zeamine, a Foxy Tune, an Ogre Dance, or an E-Telly. In this case, let's say we're going to use the Zeamine. Here's how this is going to play out. We're going to start by normal summoning out the Zeamine, paying the 600 life to add a Punk monster from our deck to the hand, of which will add a Foxy Tune. From there, I'll activate Foxy Tune's effect, sending it from my hand to the graveyard, which on resolution will have me send another card to special summon a Punk from my deck, of which I'll summon out a Shirakusai in attack. From there, I'll activate Shirakusai's effect, fusing the Punk in my hand alongside the Zeamine on field to summon out my Rising Carp, of which my Zeamine will then trigger to target my Shirakusai to give it an additional 600 attack points. From there, I'll activate Rising Carp's effect since it was fusion summoning, triggering it to summon out 2 Punks, one of them being your Madam Spider, and the other one being the Wagon that you most likely do not have in the graveyard. Now, before we do anything with these 2 monsters, we're going to activate Madam Spider's effect, paying another 600 to add a Punk trap, let's say a Nashiwaru Surprise, before we then link the Madam Spider as a tuner alongside the Wagon to summon out our Kriston Haka-Fibrax. Haka-Fibrax on summon will then summon out your Despot 001, of which you can then link summon with it alongside the Haka-Fibrax, both as machines, to summon out your Aurodon. Aurodon on summon will then summon out 3 tokens to your side of the field, in doing so triggering also that Despot 001 in your graveyard to special summon itself back to the field, of which you'll then synchro summon using the level 1 Despot 001 and the level 3 Mecha Phantom Beast token to make your Cupid Pitch. In doing this, Cupid Pitch will then trigger its effect to change its level to level 5, before I then synchro summon using the Cupid Pitch alongside another level 3 token to summon out my Borreload Savage Dragon. We're then going to activate Chaining 1 Cupid Pitch, Chaining 2 Borreload Savage, targeting my Haka-Fibrax, equipping it, before Cupid Pitch then burns my opponent for 800 and then adds from my deck to my hand the Creation Resonator. Now, I'm then going to activate the effect of my Aurodon, tributing itself alongside the remaining token to then summon out the Mecha Phantom Beast Cal Griffin from my deck. And since I control a level 8 monster, I can then special summon out the Creation Resonator, of which I can then synchro summon alongside it and the Cow Griffin to make my last disruption in my Baron de Fleur. I'm then going to set the Nashiwaru Surprise, maybe setting the remaining cards, and then pass turn to my opponent. Going into our opponent's turn, let's do a quick head count first. Currently on the field, we have 2 negates, one in the Baron de Fleur as well as a Borreload Savage. On top of that, we have a Shirakusai currently sitting at 1800 attack, forcing our opponent to have a 1900 or bigger beater to run it over. However, to protect that, we also have the Nashiwaru Surprise, which since we control the Shirakusai, can pop face-up cards as well. Now the goal of this combo is that you want to burn out your Borreload Savage effect first. Why? Because upon using out that Borreload Savage and then burning out maybe the remaining disruptions, you can then activate Shirakusai's effect on your opponent's turn to then synchro summon using it alongside your Borreload Savage to create a level 11, of which you can then summon out your Amazing Dragon. With your Amazing Dragon then being able to activate its effect targeting 4 cards since you control the Shirakusai, the Zeamin, the Wagon, and the Madam Spider in your graveyard and bounce all 4 of them to the hand, effectively and potentially clearing an entire field. This is good not only as disruption against combo, but also for on the end phase in clearing a set 4, which essentially NPs the field for the OTK in the next turn. Now, when it eventually gets to our turn, the first thing we will do is in our standby phase, we're going to activate the effect of Baron de Fleur, bouncing it back into the extract to special summon a monster from our graveyard, of which will summon out the Rising Carp. Then we're going to activate the effect of our Amazing Dragon to then target another monster, another punk monster in our graveyard, and revive it, of which this case we can bring back the Zeamin. We're going to activate Zeamin's effect then to search for another punk monster, of which will then add another Madam Spider, of which we can then normal summon to then pay another 600 to search for the remaining punk trap. From there, we can then set that trap before synchro summoning them with the Zeamin alongside the Rising Carp to summon out our second Amazing Dragon, of which both our Rising Carp and our Zeamin will trigger, targeting that new Amazing Dragon, giving it 600 attack and double attack, essentially allowing it to deal 36, 900, and 3000 for over 10,000 points of damage per game. Then, going into our test hand, the hand that we're going to be working with today is going to consist of 1 Mecha Phantom Beast Cow Griffin, 1 Creation Resonator, 1 Polymerization, 1 Wagon, and 1 Shirakusai. Okay, so clearly we didn't shuffle, but fortunately, we can still actually combo with this. Here's how this is going to play out. We're just going to start things off by activating that Polymerization, fusing the Wagon and the Shirakusai to summon out our Rising Carp. From there, we can activate the effect of the Rising Carp, tributing it to then summon out 2 punks from the deck, of which I'll summon out a Madam Spider and a Zeamin. From there, I'm going to pay 600 from both the Zeamin alongside the Madam Spider to then search for a punk monster in the Shirakusai and a punk trap in my Nashiwaru Surprise. Now, since I have a normal summon, I can then normal summon out the Shirakusai before then linking away the Zeamin alongside the Madam Spider to once again go into my Hauka-Fibrax. From there, Hauka-Fibrax will then trigger, then allow me to special summon out the Despot 001 from my deck, with the Zeamin also then letting me give my Shirakusai an additional 600 attack points. Now, at this point, you could probably already see where this is going to go. We're then going to link away the Hauka-Fibrax alongside the Despot 001 to summon out our Mecha Phantom Beast Auroradon, with Auroradon then activating to summon out 3 tokens. In doing this, the Despot 001 in my graveyard will then trigger to special summon to the field, of which will then synchro summon alongside one of those tokens to summon out our Cupid Pitch. Cupid Pitch will make itself level 5, of which you can synchro with another level 3 token to then summon out our Borreload Savage, before we then activate Cupid Pitch's effect to search, alongside Savage's effect to equip. Now, since I already have the Creation Resonator in my hand, there's no point to search for that, but instead we can search for now any other punk monster that we see fit. In this case, let's say another Zeamin for a follow-up. From there, we've also opened the Cow Griffin, but that's okay because we can still just directly tribute the Auroradon alongside the token, both Mecha Phantom Beast monsters, to special summon it to the field. Of which, since we control a level 8 synchro, we can then special summon out the Creation Resonator in our hand and synchro it alongside the Cow Griffin to once again make our Baron de Fleur. We'll then set the Nashiwaru Surprise and then pass turn to our opponent with the exact same configuration for game as our last combo. And that's going to wrap it up for our P.U.N.K deck profile. So I'm not gonna lie, this deck might actually be one of my favorites. I've made no effort in the past to hide my preference towards decks that blend source inspiration with functional gameplay, and P.U.N.K is one of those decks that do that. Despite combining the mechanics of each art style into their effects, the P.U.N.K deck possesses very functional and consistent effects that allows the deck to work despite its varying strategies. And each individual strategy feels like it's been tuned up to be on par with today's meta. In fact, while I may not have been able to showcase it today, there have been many games in testing where I've simply executed a singular style to win games, whether it be controlling with a Jorjuri or beating down with a No or Ukiyoe. And with no limitation to its effects, the deck has a lot of potential to mix with other cards to produce a lot of cool end boards. And while I can't say if my build is the most effective, I feel like it's only a matter of time before someone crafts something that can do very well at those top tables. So look out for this deck in the future. Regardless, this has been Tony, your deck architect with a P.U.N.K deck profile. I hope you enjoyed it, and I will see you guys next time.